Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick video on the issue of Common Core. Just very briefly, those of you who are outside the US may have heard of it. It's the system of instruction that has been introduced in the US across all public schools. And parents have been complaining about it ever since it was first released. Now, if those of you who know me know that I was homeschooled, I never went to a public school. So for me, and I don't approve of the public schools anyway for a multitude of reasons, one of which being that they give a terrible education regardless. I mean, they score lower than public school public school students score lower than private school students in general, and private school students score well lower than homeschool students in general. So yeah, I don't agree with it anyway. So for me, when Common Core was released and people were frustrated, especially with the mathematics, how they were teaching mathematics, they were just like, this is ridiculous. Nobody can understand even what they're saying. Why are you taking how we've taught math for generations and now changing it in this convoluted, weird, bizarre means of trying to get kids to understand math? It doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? Now, I understood their frustration. Math is difficult regardless, but I didn't have a lot of pity for them because, again, I don't like the public schools anyway. So I felt like if you have your kids in public school, what do you have to complain about? If you don't like what they're being taught, pull them out of public school, teach them yourself, hire somebody else who can do it. Private school or whatever. Like I said, I don't like the public school system, so I just didn't have a lot of pity. But a lot of my friends on Facebook do have their kids in public school. And one of them one day posted an image that showed, here's how we used to do math. Here's how Common Core teaches you how to do math. And I thought, okay, I'm curious. What is the frustration? What are they actually teaching in Common Core? Why is it that people hate this so much? So I looked at the example, read through it, and at first glance, I'm like, whoa, this is complicated. Hold on. What? And I had to figure out, what are they actually saying? What are they trying to teach? What is actually being taught here? And I looked over it, and I got it. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, I get it. Okay, I understand. I see this. And I got to the end. I'm like, okay. And I thought, wait, that's exactly how I solve math problems. And again, people who know me know that I'm considered a mathematical genius. I've loved math all my life. I majored in mathematics. I've worked in math most of my adult life. I mean, I'm very, very good at math. I have tutored math for decades. It's my subject. It's the thing I love math. So I'm looking at this thinking, okay, it is a little convoluted. It is a little confusing at first, but that's exactly how I would solve a math problem. And it was funny looking at it. I thought, wow, my brain is seriously complicated, and my thought processes are rather strange and unique, obviously. I'd never seen it actually put into a visual format, put into words, but I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I think. That's exactly how I would solve it. It just is a little confusing until you get the hang of it. And I started wondering, why don't parents like this? I mean, that's how I think. And I'm really good at math. And it was then that I realized, probably where they came up with the idea for Common Core math, how they came up with this, and why they're teaching it like this. But it was my experience as a tutor that helped me understand why this is so wrong. Excuse me. Now, the writers of Common Core, my guess, I don't know for sure, but my guess is that they either hired mathematical geniuses or went and interviewed mathematical geniuses to try to figure out what is the best way to learn math. They wanted to know, how does a genius solve a math problem? When you look at this problem, how do you picture it? For example, it used to be in generations past, when they would teach math, 16 plus 15 equals 31. How do you get that? You say 6 plus 5 equals 11. So you write down a 1, you carry the 10. You have 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. Therefore, 16 plus 15 equals 31. That's not how my brain works. My brain looks at that and it separates it into in the same way Common Core would do. It says, okay, we have two 10s. We're going to set these aside. We have the 6 and the 5. How much does it take to get a 10 of those? 6 plus 5. You can have 5 plus 5 or 6 plus 4, either one. So you have the 6 plus, you have a 5, which is 1 plus 4. So you take the 6 plus the 4 is going to give you a 10. You have a 1 left over. So you move the 10 over, you drop the 1 down, and now you have 3 10s. So ultimately you're doing the same thing, but you're making it way more complicated than it needs to be. That's how my brain works. It doesn't separate it into words like that. It is more kind of a visual thing, which interestingly enough, looking at Common Core textbooks, they do separate it into visuals. They'll put it all in these little blocks and put them all together, which again, when you actually look at it, when you try to take processes in the brain, put them into pictures and look at it, you're like, whoa, is that how I think? And I think, well, yeah, that is. But man, it looks so complicated, because how do you take a brain process and put it into words? Most people can't. You can take the reasoning process, that's fine, but how your brain actually separates it and all, it looks so complicated when you try to actually write it down. But yes, Common Core, that's the way geniuses think when they do math. So what they tried to do is they said, okay, well, if a genius thinks this way, it must be the best way to think. Now, jump back a little bit. Like I said, I have been tutoring mathematics for decades. I don't do it lately just because I'm too busy with my business. I don't have the time anymore. But one thing I learned very early on was that if I tried to teach people the way I think, they couldn't get it. People who come to me for tutoring are people who are not naturally gifted in mathematics. They have to really work at it. It doesn't come to them naturally. So if I said, oh, here's how you need to do it, and try to teach them my way of thinking, they can't get it. It's like speaking a different language. Their brain does not work the way my brain works. If it did, they wouldn't need help. They'd get it just like that. No problem. So what I had to do was figure out, how do other people think? And I figured out that the vast majority of people think one of, say, about 3 different ways. So for every problem, every subject, I should say, that I had to teach, because I would teach all the way from first grade, which I think in Europe is called primary school, I'm not sure. Basically the beginning level math, all the way up through Calc 3, which is almost as high as you can go in college without being an actual mathematics major. If you're made, even some math majors, if it's just kind of, or a math minor, it's probably as high as you're going to go. But anyway, I would teach almost all levels of math. And I had to figure out, how do people think? And for most levels of math, there were about 3 different ways. So I would learn 3 or 4 different ways of doing every problem. And the 4th one would be my way of doing it. And I wouldn't teach people my way of doing it usually. Sometimes I would offer and say, well, here's how I would do it. And if they got it, then I'm like, awesome, here, I'm going to show you how to do it this way for all these different ones. But others, I usually what I do, if they're having problems, we open the textbook, they said, here's what I'm having trouble with. I say, okay, take this problem, you try to solve it. And me watching them work through it will tell me how their brain thinks. And then I know how to teach them how to do it. I'll say, okay, stop, here's what you want to do. And then I would explain it, and they would get it, and they would get so excited. And I would take students who were failing in their math courses, and they would become the highest scoring students in the class. Not always, but quite often that was normal, because I would figure out, how do you think? Now let me teach you a way that your brain is going to understand. This is the problem with Common Core. What they say is, okay, the geniuses think this way, therefore it must be the best way to think, therefore we're going to force everyone to think like this, maybe 3 to 5% of the population. And it doesn't work. So vast swathes of people don't get it, they get frustrated, and they just think, oh, math is hard. And we're going to see, I feel like we're going to see a huge deficit in people going into mathematics fields, because they're going to assume I'm just dumb when it comes to math. I can't get math. Math is too hard. And it's not that it's too hard, it's that it's being taught to them in a way they can't understand. It's like teaching them a different language. So again, my first introduction to Common Core, I was like, what's the big fuss about? This is the way smart people, this is the way mathematical people think about math. And by the way, if you're an absolute genius with math, that doesn't mean you're smart in all areas. I have areas where I struggle immensely. Ooh. I'm actually very good in a lot of academic areas, so that's not it. But I mean, interpersonal relationships. Oh yeah, I'm not good at that. I cannot relate to people. Whereas I have a sister who was nowhere near as good at me as I am with academics. She was good. She was very intelligent, but nowhere near my level. And yet she is awesome with people. Oh my goodness, she's just amazing. So strengths and weaknesses don't mean, oh, this one's a genius, this one's an idiot. No, that's not how it works. But anyway, I get sidetracked easily. Regardless, when I first looked at the Common Core method of teaching, I thought, yeah, this is great. This is how math geniuses look at math. And then very quickly, again, my experience stepped in and said, no, that's not going to work. In fact, that's a really, really bad idea. You're going to turn off so many people to math. You're going to have so many people confused, and they're just going to say, I can't get it. Just throw their hands up and like, I can't do this. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't. You're essentially speaking a foreign language. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, because I have seen people, anytime school starts up again, you get parents complaining about Common Core. And I kind of wanted to say this partly because I wanted to show people Common Core was not introduced as some, I mean, yeah, it was, I would say introduced by some idiot. I don't know who did it, but it wasn't intentionally trying to make math hard. It wasn't actually even trying to make math easy. They were trying to achieve the end result of let's make everybody a genius. But it doesn't work like that. You can't take a poor person and force them into a mold where they don't fit. You're just going to wreck them both. It's just, that meaning both the person and the mold. If you keep trying, it won't work. So all that to say, I do believe Common Core was introduced with the best of intentions, but it was a stupid idea. And that's being borne out. And they really, really, really need to just abandon it. And parents need to get their kids out of the public school. Seriously, teaching them yourself at home. They're going to turn out so much better in so many ways. And yeah, I could go into that another time. But anyway, that's not the point of this talk. It is just talking about Common Core. And there are a lot of things that this can carry over into. People, if you know me, you know I talk politics more often than I talk academics, a lot more often. And even in politics, so often you'll see people proposing these absolutely horrific ideas. And you're like, what are you thinking? Are you insane? No, they have the best of intentions. And this is how they think we can get there. Like, yes, this is going to be awesome. And here's why. And you're like, that's sweet. You have no idea what you're doing. And you don't understand the law of unintended consequences. Ouch. Anyway, that's all. Just quick talking about that. Feel free to leave a comment or whatever if you want to engage with that, or if you want to talk about Common Core, if you want to talk about, well, if you want to get in an argument about homeschooling versus public schooling, I can set up another stream about that. I'm probably not going to argue about that on this one. Anyway, y'all have a great day. I'll talk to you later.